Now, today, we are going to talk about lost the spark in your marriage. And of course, Sylvia is taking this course. I'll leave her to introduce herself because I know that she's a slide on it. So I'll leave her to introduce herself. But Sylvia is a very good trainer. And when she trains, people listens. Okay. And she has a right qualification for all this work. So I'll leave her to explain. Okay. But before that, can I ask you for 2 minutes to log your question, right? Jeffrey, can you actually print out the question, the box whereby they can log the question? Okay. Guys, are you okay? Do you all see the question box? Yes or no? Inda, do you see yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Now, can you type in the question that you want to ask for today? It could be about marriage. It could not be about marriage. Anything that burdens your heart. Okay, anything that burdens your heart. Okay, type in a question because I want to use it and I want to answer your questions. We'll choose a few questions to answer, right? So type in your questions, right? We'll pick 3 questions and we'll answer it using what we call our Orego AI. And then, of course, Sylvia can chip in, right? Have you got all the questions in already? Okay. If not, you continue typing. I'm going to pass the time over to Sylvia because she has a lot of slides to show and a lot of information for us. So I'll pass this time to Sylvia. And Sylvia, you just want to share your beautiful slides? Her slides are pink in color, so they're very beautiful. Sylvia, please.
Thank you so much, Paul. And thanks for inviting me to present and to give a talk to everyone. So good evening, everybody. It's nice to meet you. So let me show you my slides. I'll start with that, and then we can kick off the talk. How come it's not? Okay, here we go. Okay. It's a bit delayed sometimes. All right. Okay. So I hope y'all can see my slides. All right. So just now what Paul was saying that yes, tonight's topic is, have you lost your spark in your marriage? Now this term, I always hear it quite common in my therapy room. People say that they lost their spark, the connection, and it's nothing to do with how long you've been married for. Some people think that they've been married for 10 years, that's why they lost a spark, or even 20 years. But you can even lose your spark even in your first year of marriage or even in your first few months of marriage. Okay? So today I'm going to talk about what happened, what causes people to really lose their spark, right? And I'll share with you some 4 small evidence-based habits. And evidence-based means what researchers like psychologists love to do research sometimes. So there's studies have been done about what are the different habits or practices that can actually help to bring back the spark, bring back the connection. Okay, so yeah, so I think you're here because maybe you're feeling like, your relationship or your marriage has maybe gone a bit rocky, or maybe it's not quite the same as before. You lost the romantic nights and dinners that you have with your husband or your wife, right? So you kind of miss those times all over again. So today I'm going to share with you some of the so what I've learned over the years as a psychologist. And let me share with you like a little bit about my background, and maybe you can get a better understanding of who I am. And I'll share along the way like the kind of cases that I've seen. Okay, so a little bit about me. Paul was just sharing a little bit about me. Let me share a little bit more about me professionally. Previously, I was working actually in a family court. This is where I dealt with a lot of divorce cases. Okay, and actually, it's from there that I learned a lot about marriages and what make marriages break down. Okay, I'll share a little bit more in details later. So after the family court, I joined the social service. I didn't add that in. but I started my own company in 2021. Okay, so I'm in private practice. I provide counseling and therapy, individual therapy as well as couples therapy. Alongside with that, I continue to do some family court work as well. I do child custody reports, meaning I assist the court to help the judge to decide about the custody and care and control of the children. And also like help people to do divorce recovery, the post-divorce work. Yeah, so I do a couples therapy as well, uh, and 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 then also for individual therapy. So just a note before we start. Now, this talk that I'm going to share is just really a very general information guidance, that's all, okay? So this isn't a substitute for your own individual therapy or couples therapy, all right? So don't think that tonight I'm going to fix your problem, fix your marriage problem completely. You're going to get some tips from it. You maybe can apply for it straight away, but it shouldn't be a substitute if there is more serious issues that you need to deal with. And today we'll talk a little bit about how you can identify when you need to get help and when maybe you just need to tweak a little bit about your interaction with your spouse to make things a little bit better. Okay? And most importantly, we're going to look at what strains the closest connection between you and your spouse, okay, and what might really help. So what I actually learned about good marriage comes from what happens in a bad marriage. All right. So one thing I've heard from hundreds of divorcing couples as well, and of course in my own work with couples in couples therapy, they often say that the connection or the spark doesn't really just disappear all of a sudden in one single event. Okay, it's not just because of one big argument and then you completely lost the spark. All right. It's actually through multiple times of unmet bids for support, connection, and understanding. And today I'm going to share a little bit more about what are the bids for support. Okay. Now, people tend to complain when my clients come and see me for their couples therapy. One of the common things I hear is that they say they don't have time. He says, Sylvia, I really don't have time. Work is so busy. The kids are so busy, they're busy with the kids. The weekends are packed full of schedules. They are working overtime. And on top of that, their work travels, right? So they complain about the time and then also exhaustion, the physical tiredness. So yes, the reality of day-to-day life, family life, especially if you have really young children, it's true that your time may be really, really tight. But what I found actually is that it's really not the lack of time that is a problem. It's actually the lack of the effort and the intention. Okay. It's a lack of effort or the recognition that you really need to put some effort and intention in. Because you're not talking about spending a lot of hours to go on date nights and stuff like that. So there are the little moments. So today I'm going to talk about what are the little moments and how you can create that. Now, the other thing as well I've learned is that it's not because of the lack of communication or poor communication. So sometimes couples will say, oh, we don't know how to communicate. We don't know how to express things to each other. All right. Well, that's true to some extent. Often it's about the listening and the communicating. All right. Okay. But deep down, beneath all of this is actually, to having to create the conversation between both of you so you actually feel safe, emotionally safe with one another. So it's about really, yes, listening skill is very important, but it's actually learning to be present because some people can listen, but they don't feel present enough to be listening and being attentive to your spouse. All right, so I'll talk a little bit about that, how you can be more present with one another, and that will actually change the quality of your conversation. Now, the last one I find, what I've learned from couples who don't do so well, is that they don't take personal responsibility to change themselves and to self-regulate. Okay, they tend to blame the other person. It's about blaming the other spouse that is the fault. They are the one that didn't do the dishes. They're the one that didn't, do this and do that. All right. Or they're the one that started it first. So the blaming sometimes doesn't help. If you keep looking to your partner to be fixing the relationship problem, that too also is problematic. Sometimes we do have to look at ourselves and say, what are we bringing into our relationship? Is it, sometimes is it me? Is it because, I didn't manage my emotions properly? Or maybe I should phrase things better, say things in a better way. So tonight I'm going to show you how certain words that you say, the way you communicate, can actually trigger a negative reaction to your spouse. All right. So these are the main points, the points that I've learned from divorcing couples, and that you do not want to replicate in your own marriage. Okay, oops. All right. So I just want to ask you all, how many of you feel like this? You feel like you're more like, business partners or co-workers. All your conversations is around logistics. Who got the kids, pay the bills, the chores. How many of you like this? If you are, can you put me like a thumbs up or something on your emoji I just want to have some interaction around this. Anyone? You just put thumbs up, hands up. I don't know if I can see um the response. Right? Maybe you might know the schedule, that really well. You're like just operating really well together, but there's nothing else. That's it. Or you might also feel like maybe your physical affection, you're not having much intimacy with one another, even there's not much hugs and kisses with one another anymore. That suddenly stopped. Okay. Or this is a common one as well that I hear some of my couples who will say that they will, at the end of the day, they're so tired and so stressed out. All they want to do is go on a phone and decompress, and then they just roll over and say good night and go to bed. Okay, so how many of you feel like this? No one want to put up a hand to show? No, that's okay. But if that's you probably might resonate with some of that. Okay, so maybe you would rather feel like this, all right? You would maybe feel like you want to have proper conversations. You ask each other to have real questions, to have meaningful conversations about what's important for you, how you're feeling, and tracking about your dreams, your future. So things like that. You're probably longing for a deeper conversation, right? Or maybe you might also feel like you want to have your requests, your bids for attention to be noticed and answered, right? You want to have these conversations happening. And also maybe some affection so you can feel you're desirable, you're still good looking enough, you don't feel like you're not attractive anymore. So you like to feel some of that, right? But perhaps you understand that conflict actually do happen. I don't know of any couples who don't argue, which is actually very normal. But actually, we hope that we can repair much faster. You don't have to wait for 3 days for things to get better, or sometimes a week to get things to get better. Okay? So I'm sure if many of you want to feel like your marriage is like a partnership. Okay, that you have each other's back, a team. So this is what we'll cover in this next however time that we have left. Okay. Well, what is spark goes silent, and 4 daily practices that we can do, and then when do you actually do need to get the help, or some of the things that you can do on your own. Okay. So this is what we'll cover today. So as I shared earlier, the spark doesn't go silent just because you've been together for a very long time. It's true that sometimes couples who have been together for a long time, they tend to take each other for granted. All right. They treat it as I know you already, I know you very well, I don't need to ask any questions about you anymore. So conversations start to become stale and silent, all right? So now that again, it doesn't really happen in one dramatic moment, but it can happen in thousands of small ones. So one of the couples experts that we, our psychologists and counselors, we're going to learn from is actually John Gottman and Julie Gottman. They are the very famous couple. They're a couple of psychologists who have developed this Gottman method for couples therapy. And how they developed the method, it came from their 25 or 30 years of research into couples work. So what they did was they had a lab, and then they basically recorded couples interaction. They had hundreds of couples kind of interaction with one another. And they analyzed the way they talk to each other, what they say, what they do, okay, and how they repair arguments. So it's through all this research that they found very interesting information that they're sharing the world around what makes couples stay together and what makes couples drift apart and also eventually get into divorce. All right. So what they found is that most couples don't drift apart because of one big betrayal. Yes, sometimes that can happen too, but it's all these little bits of connection that goes unanswered again and again until the distance feels normal. So what are the bits that we're talking about? All right. So a bit is any small attempt to connect. It could be something like, oh, wow, you got a nice shirt, or a pat on your, a little tap on the shoulder to your spouse, a glance, a text message sometimes, right? Or maybe even just a reaching out, asking, well, how's your day? All right. So any attempt to connect with your spouse is a bit, all right? So Gottman's lab, what they found is that, they studied all of this, and then like I shared earlier, they found what actually helps and what actually doesn't help. So what they found is that 86% of couples who stayed together, they turn towards their partner's bits. So that means every time there's like a request, honey, like, could you do dishes for me? Do you mind doing this? And then the partner responds and accordingly. Or there's some conversation that happens, one person tries to bid for a conversation, a time to spend time together. The other partner responds and say, right, honey, we haven't spent much time together. Can we go and do something? And then the partner say, oh yeah, sure, let's do that. Let's go. How about we go have a date in a restaurant or something? So that's a response. Okay. So when couples respond to each other's bids, they stay together. 86% do. But it's the 33% that don't later divorce. Okay. All right. So I don't know, the math doesn't quite add up. It should be like 24, but yeah, but apparently the research shows 33% of couples who later divorced did the same. Okay. Now, missing a bit here and there, sometimes it's normal. Sometimes you really cannot respond to your partner's request, right? For example, to go on a holiday or something, but your work schedule is so tight, all right, but you can't meet it, but you try to make amends. So this missing here and there is okay, but it's only when it's repeated and repeated and repeated. And then after a while, the common thing I hear from people is that they tend to say is, I'm just tired of asking. Okay, the tiredness or they just give up. I've given up in asking. So that's quite sad when you come to that point. So once bits are always repeatedly missed, right? Partners start to interpret the missed bits or the not doing, not responding in a very negative way. They start thinking maybe they don't care. Maybe they can't be bothered anymore. Maybe he doesn't care about my feelings. Maybe she doesn't really take interest in me. Maybe she has some other interest. I'm not important. So all these interpretation will start to come in, and that will start to create some emotional distance, right? And start to feel some kind of maybe some negative feelings, right? So Gottman calls this negative sentiment override. So goodwill starts to run up quietly. So that means that, like even though sometimes, you might start to make up what you didn't do, if there's so many times that the bits weren't answered, sometimes a little bit of like, oh, trying to patch up is not going to help. Okay. And so yeah, so this negative sentiment can grow bigger and bigger and bigger. All right. So this gotta pay attention to that. So whenever your spouse made a request, okay, pay attention to it. It may not be a request, it could just be a comment or something like that. And then what will happen next is that the distance starts to feel a bit normal. All right. You start to feel like, okay, well, it looks like we're not going to have that kind of connection anymore or talking. And maybe getting your emotional needs met, for instance, like you want your spouse to have a conversation with you, or you're needing your spouse to listen or to have a big listening ear about all your stress. And if it doesn't happen, then you start to feel like maybe I need to get my needs met from somewhere else, my friends, or through a therapist, or or something else. So that distance starts to be like part of your everyday life. Okay, so you don't have to fight. You don't need to have big arguments, actually. Right? This is when couples start to lead parallel lives. They start to do their own things. They start to, they don't do things together anymore. All right. They can still manage stuff to do things around the kids, but it's just focus on that. Even then, in couples therapy, we call that's an invisible distance. There's a comfortable distance that they start to feel okay with. All right. So there's one study recently done by the Singapore government to do some survey about the level of happiness in couples marriage. And actually quite a high number, about 70, I can't remember, 70% or 80% people say they're happy in a marriage. But I really question around that because sometimes even not having emotional closeness can be good enough. People feel that it's okay. So long as we're like functioning as parents, husband, wives, it's fine. Okay. But there's no emotional closeness. There's this parallel lives. Okay. Now, this is something that Gottman talks about, or he notices for couples who have, who go into those big fights and they're in conflict, their ones are in trouble and eventually end up having divorce. And he noticed the patterns in the way of they interact with one another, and he calls it the four horsemen. Okay, the four horsemen, the types of interaction that couples have that actually become the strongest predictors of divorce. And this is what I see in the family court room and also right now in my therapy room as well. Okay, number one, the most common one is criticism. You're always criticizing your spouse. How come you don't do this properly? I told you to to fold the clothes this way, or why don't you do this that way? So this constant criticism is, can be perceived as an attack. Okay, you're attacking your spouse character. You're basically saying that there's something wrong with you and you're not good enough. All right. So it can bring the sense of hurt, and it can really quite hurt your spouse kind of self-esteem and self-worth if there's constant criticism. All right. So that's quite common among couples who actually have gone through divorce. And then they come up as, that constant experience as arguments, and sometimes may even end up into some kind of tussle and fights with one another. All right. The other one is contempt. Okay. This is also another very nice dynamic. This is almost like the feeling like I'm better than you, kind of energy. All right. is where one person starts to make fun of the other person, demean them, use sarcasm, name calling, right? Treating your partner like you're worthless, and so it's a very not such a nice, can be very toxic. Okay, it's almost sometimes bordering on can be a form of emotional abuse, right? This contempt is not a very healthy. It's one of the horsemen that Gottman identifies. Okay, the other one is defensiveness. All right, always not admitting the person what they do, right? Maybe you might have told your spouse that, look, whatever they say has hurt you, and then their spouse might get defensive and say, no, I didn't say that. Why do you think that way? All right. So there's being defensive all the time. It's about deflecting blame. It signals to your spouse that you're not really listening or really paying attention to how your spouse is actually really feeling. All right, so that's also not very helpful. And the last horseman is, they call it the stonewalling. This is when not just one person, sometimes two persons can stonewall each other. It means a shutting down. You don't talk to each other anymore. You withdraw, okay? Or sometimes people don't say anything just to make the other person feel bad, right? So this is the stonewalling can create a lot of tension and angst and also anxiety. All right, because sometimes things are not resolved. So I don't know if you're experiencing any of this, but if you do, just maybe take note. All right. But is that been going on for a long time or not? Or maybe you don't have it at all. Maybe something else. Okay, so right now I'm going to share with you some of what are the four small daily practices that you can do each day. Not grand gestures. You don't need to plan a massive holiday to bring back the spark. All right, it's just small little things that can make a difference. Okay, so as I shared earlier, like 86% of the couples who stay together, right, they end up working through their problems in their marriage. They actually do turn to each other's bits for connection. They really make the effort to reconnect. All right. So now these four practices, okay, it doesn't take much. It just takes a few minutes each day. All right. So that's why I said you don't need to spend like ages. Okay. So it is really about working on the bits. And it's also like a daily ritual that you can try to do to sort of reconnect with one another. All right. Okay. So the first one, partings and reunions. All right. So this is when, if you're home with your spouse, is coming and saying goodbye to each other. All right. So maybe this is something you can do twice a day. It probably just takes 1 minute. Okay. So before you part for the day, before you leave, you maybe share one thing, what's happening in your day or your partner's day. Maybe sharing like, oh, today I'm just going to go have lunch with so and so, or, just letting your partner know what's happening. Okay. So when that happens, you're actually signaling to your partner that, I'm sharing with you my world, because you're not spending 24/7 all together, right? All the time, right? Because you both have to go to work and do stuff. So it kind of keeps each other connected, that, through the day, that you do know that, oh, this is happening. All right. So it's kind of like putting your spouse, putting your day into your spouse's mind, or keeping each other in mind. So this is something very simple. You can just do that. Just sharing what you're doing for your day, or you're just letting them know, oh, you're right. Okay, you have good lunch with your spouse later on. So you kind of sharing your day. Or you can end the day or end your goodbye with a 6-second kiss. All right. Why 6 seconds? Because it takes 6 seconds for your brain to produce oxytocin. It is the feel-good chemical to the bonding chemical to come on. Okay, so the 6-second kiss, not that packed little bit, like half a second that that some couples do. All right. Or even maybe a hug, a physical hug, can be really helpful too. Okay. So on reunion at the end of the day, when you come back, really greet each other with a real present hello. Okay. How was the day before you start really getting in the run of the kids and doing things like that, the housework and stuff. Really connect, hug, kiss. Okay, so that's one practice. It's called the partings and reunions when you come back together. Because when you come back together, it's almost, you show like your excitement, right? Oh wow, I'm so glad to see you again. Not like, oh gosh, not you again, you know, right? So it's kind of like for those of you who have kids, your kids come home, you want to have a happy face to see them, right? Hey, you guys are back, happy to see you. It's the same with the spouse, right? You want to feel the same way too. So that actually is very, I find that helpful. Okay. Okay. Practice two is on stress reducing conversation. Now, this is a dedicated 20 minutes, okay, on each other's, to really you're becoming a safe harbor for each other. It's like, you at the end of the day, you went to work, you've been to war, you've been to battle with all this, your colleagues and people who annoy you. It's just really about setting time to really like, hey, listen to each other and be present, right? So no phones, no no playing a game while your spouse is talking to you or that kind of stuff. So all gadgets aside and no problems that you need to solve just by really hearing your spouse like, hey, how was the day? Kind of thing. All right. So one partner will share the day's stress, what has gone on. The other will just listen. Listen, not problem solving, not telling them what they did was wrong. All right. Just really listen and reflect. Reflecting means, oh wow, okay, this thing happened to you, right? Oh wow, this person said it to you. This is reflecting. And then validating is like, oh wow, that was so stressful. Man, it was a tough day. I totally get it. So this is called validating. Okay. So when you're able to do that to each other, it can really make the other person feel like, they feel heard and seen. Okay. And then you take turns, you swap over. All right. So the goal is really to help each other feel understood and not to fix or advise. All right. Okay. So this is a very powerful, it doesn't take long, 10 minutes, maybe 10, 20 minutes. And this really signal to each other that, you're there for each other through the difficult times. So this daily practice is like a bank. Gottman talks about the emotional bank. You deposit some, your bank needs money, right? To put money in the bank for it to grow. This is a very important emotional bank that happens for couples. The sharing, the letting in with one another's world and supporting each other. That's how they feel supported. Without that, it just gets into a distance. Okay, practice three, rituals of appreciation. Okay, so build a habit of noticing what your partner does right out loud. So you really notice and you say it straight away. This is not about, oh, buy a big birthday present, not about a fancy holiday. It's not about that. Okay, yes, you can do that too to show your appreciation for your spouse, but it's not about that. It's just about the daily practice. So for instance, if your spouse was like, doing the homework with the kids and they were having a really good time and was a good interaction, you can say something like, hey, thanks for doing that. That was wonderful. I liked it that the kids, it's so nice to see you and the kids, like getting on or like playing. Okay. Right. So little things like that, as soon as you notice something positive, say it. Maybe to your husband, hey, you look so nice in that shirt. I really like the color. You look so handsome. You look so pretty beautiful. You know? So even though couples, if you remember in the beginning when you're courting, you love to hear all these validations, right? You love to hear all the mushy things and stuff like that. So you can try to bring that in again. It's the attention. It's like you basically, you're giving your spouse, you notice something, and then they feel like, oh wow, like you noticed me. Okay. So these are little, again, doesn't take much to show that appreciation, and maybe it's about the admiration. Okay, the feeling desired and things like that. It's so important in to keep that spark going in relationships. If you're struggling to find some of it sometimes, maybe you want to run a mental note, okay? Start to pay a bit more attention to some positive things about your partner instead of looking at things that they didn't do or didn't like to do, okay? So this is when you start to feel a bit critical. I'd like you to really make a mental note to start to look for positive things. Look for positive qualities in your partners and keep repeating them until it overrides the negativity. Okay, all right. So these, again, they're little emotional banks for you to build into your relationship. Practice 4 is on everyday affection. All right. So this is really the physical touch that is so important. Okay. I don't know. Some couples don't really. I've seen some couples when they come for couples therapy, when they're sitting far apart from each other, their bodies turn away from one another. I know that they haven't been doing that. They haven't touched one another for a long, long time. Okay. So, yes, physical intimacy is important, but it starts with those affection. But that, I'll come to this about, if you're a bit strained in this, there could be other reasons, and I'll come to the slide later on. But yes, but these physical affection is important. Okay, and this I think I don't have to to explain much about it because touch again it produces oxytocin, and the oxytocin is a bonding chemical. If you like it or not, we are very chemical driven human beings. When our brains produce oxytocin, we feel good. We feel this loving feeling. Okay, that comes up through human touch. All right. So notice those bits for affection, those bits for I want to spend time with you. Those are bits for really looking for that. Now, this is in practice 5. I've added this bit in, okay? One of the horsemen, which I think uh Julie Gottman and they didn't add in, is about anger, okay? Poor emotion regulation. One of the things I commonly see for couples who don't do so well is when there has been lots of anger outbursts in the relationship. Okay. Yes, life gets stressful. People get frustrated. All right. We all get angry sometimes. We get irritated. The weather is so hot. Our boss is pissing us off. The kids are pissing us off. So anger is part and parcel of life. Okay. But it's how you regulate yourself so important. Okay, because sometimes it's the repeated explosion, outburst, and the lack of repair that actually strains that emotional closeness with one another. Okay, your nervous system gets all like on edge, like some people talk about, oh my God, I feel like I have to walk on eggshells around my husband or my wife because I don't know when they're going to blow up, that kind of thing. So that already creates that distance. You don't want to go close to that person, right? You don't want to go close to your spouse because you don't feel like, the spikes coming out all the time. So that's when physical affection actually shuts down, right? So here's some tips. If you have difficulties regulating your emotions at times, okay, it's something that we all have to learn how to manage our emotions whenever we get triggered. So whenever you feel frustrated, the first thing you need to do is take a pause, take a deep breath in, and notice that, like, feeling your frustration, okay? For whatever it is, maybe you want to take a deep breath in, And then there's a quick method. You just count backwards. 100, 99, 98, 97, 97, 96, 95. Just count backwards. Take a deep breath in and breathing out. So that is in a moment, okay, to help you to turn your heat, anger down a notch, okay? So instead of reacting, boom, saying things that you might regret, think about how you might want to say certain things. Because sometimes our words can be so harsh or so quick that, it's like daggers thrown out, You just maybe you hold it first, think about it. Maybe if you're upset, okay, angry, hold it and take a breath and calm yourself down. Think about how else would you say something that you wouldn't hurt your spouse. So remember what I shared earlier about criticisms or contempt or defensiveness. So those are if you could do the opposite of those responses, that will really, really help. Okay. So if you could slow down your reactivity, okay, and to not be so explosive, that can really help with the communication, and it helps your spouse to feel emotionally safe. And then you're not a source of threat anymore. You're not someone who is dangerous or scary in your relationship, in your marriage. Okay, so here's your 1 week challenge. Your homework is to really try to practice the 4 practices which I shared earlier with you. Okay, the partings and reunion, right? So it's very easy. It's like saying hello and goodbye and the kisses and connection. Okay, and then the other one is the stress reducing conversation. Come back home and then be present, no phone, and really ask the spouse, how was the day? Tell me about your day, and validate, listen, don't problem solve. Okay. The other thing is to show appreciation for your spouse. Okay. Admiration. I think I will add the word, show appreciation and admiration. Okay, so this is something that will have really helped to build a connection, and of course, bring in the affection as well. Okay, so how do you know you guys really need extra deeper help? Okay, so signs that this is normal, okay, and things can be fixed, is that maybe you're looking at your season of your life. Maybe you're looking at what's happening. Maybe you just both are going through a very stressful period. For example, you just move house. Okay, moving house is a stressful time, right? You're both stretched thin, or maybe a new baby, or maybe you just change a job, right? Or you have like aging parents, you get extra responsibilities. So all these things is just because you're both stretched thin. It's not because your spouse is a terrible person. Okay, everyone is just stressed. So if you have that understanding, you know that okay, this is maybe just a capacity issue. Maybe it's a time season. Hopefully, when things are a bit less stressful, things will get better. Okay, but you need to talk about it and acknowledge that. Look, this is a bit stressful time. Let's try to make things a bit better. The other sign that's fixable is that you can still talk, right, about things. So the real conversation is still possible. You can talk about, and instead of like, I'm sick or tired talking. Okay, so there's a difference is you're still willing to talk, you want to work things out, both people. So are willing to really want to understand what went wrong and want to make the effort. The other sign would be the warmth return after some small effort. This is a feeling thing. Okay, you start to feel like, oh, okay, your shoulders would drop. Maybe you feel you could breathe better with one another. Okay, you start to feel some positive feeling coming back into yourself. Okay, after some small effort, you feel a bit happier again. And then the last sign that is still fixable on your own, okay, is that there's no contempt, okay? There's still some distance, that's all. Okay, they're still respectful with one another. There's no name calling, that kind of stuff, make you fun of you, and you don't have this major resentment that's building, So it's still it's still okay. So you can work this out on your own. All right. So then do your practices, the tips that I shared with you that should help. Okay, but when you start to see the horsemen, which I talked to you about, especially with contempt, okay, and this is very entrenched, right? This is when you really start to feel like, so much resentment, and maybe this is when you really need people help, okay? But then again, you don't have to wait till things get so bad before you get any help. I always say to couples, come in for tune-up. Sometimes it's about really learning how to communicate and learn to understand each other in a couples therapy. It doesn't have to get to really, really bad stage, then kind of get some help. Okay, so I call this a little tune-up. Okay, so this is when you can decide when to get help or not. All right, so one thing to remember, small, often, and out loud. Out loud means saying it, and that's what keeps a marriage close. So you can, treat it like a garden. You don't always watering the marriage is like a garden, I would say. You always have to water it. You need to put some fertilizers in sometimes, go in the sun. The essential ingredients, those are very important to keep your marriage alive and going. Okay. But sometimes you might miss out a little bit. It's okay. You don't have to know no relationship is perfect. But but adding those little tips I share with you will help a long way. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. All right. This is me. This is my practice, Sylvia Tan Psychology Consultancy. This is my website. You can check out my website. I think someone will put a link for you to have a look at it. And that's my WhatsApp number if you like to make some inquiries. I'm also on the social media on my Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn and YouTube. My YouTube channel is very not very big, so don't worry about YouTube. But yeah. But I've shared with Paul that, but thank you for coming. If you're interested to maybe talk a little bit about your relationship, maybe you want to find, maybe you want to just ask somebody for some counseling tips or something like that. You haven't been for counseling before, I'm offering like a 20 minutes free consultation. If you're keen, there's a QR code here that goes into there's a QR code for my Calendly booking system. You're welcome to scan it, and it takes you to my free booking system, and you can book yourself in for a 20 minutes free consultation. Okay, that's my offering for you, and I thank you all for coming and joining me this evening. Okay, that's all, Paul.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Sylvia, for the time that she shared with us. Now, let me take the stage back again. Now, what we have, give me a minute, huh? What we have now is actually it's going to be quite interesting. As soon as I can start my slides. Bum, bum, bum. Okay. Yes. Okay. Now remember that I asked a question. Remember I asked a question. Do you have any questions? Can you key into the post box so that we can actually take a look at it and then try to answer? Okay, today we are going to get what we have called Orego AI to answer the questions. Now, this is a proprietary AI learning companion system that Orego specifically developed, and it is built upon the expertise of all our different trainers. We have actually learned all the expertise from them, and it accompanies all our online courses, right? So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to stop share and then ask one of my colleagues who has actually taken one of the question and input it to this AI system. So Joseph, can you start sharing with the question that has been inputted? Now, the question that was inputted is this. Okay, Joseph, can you cut and paste the question? This is how Orego AI look like, right? You can when you the one that is available for you to try on the website allows you to quiz your understanding, allow you to do a role play, allow you to ask anything. So here, this is a question that is given. Okay, unfortunately, not directly relevant to marriage, but relevant to family, which is good as well. The question is that I have two children. One of them is an 18-year-old boy with autism, special needs, right? My husband and I are always busy with him. That's normal. In a family, in a marriage, that's always the case, right? That there's some things that unexpected comes out. So in this case, the family has a autistic child, a boy, but they have another girl who's 7 years old. So what advice can you give me for self-care and yet not neglect my 7-year-old daughter and my husband? So this is a question that someone asked. Now, Joseph, can you enter the question and we'll see what answers come out. Now, obviously, I'll get Sylvia to kind of comment on this as well, because she would always be the expert that we go for. But when you're doing online learning, Sylvia is not going to be with you, appearing in your home or appearing on your screen all the time, right? So this helps you to get some answers. So it's like ChatGPT, but very much a mental health focus. So it sounds like you're trying to hold a lot at once and still make sure your 7-year-old and your husband doesn't get left out. What feels hardest right now? Finding time for yourself or making sure everybody in family gets enough attention, right? So that is a valid answer, right? Anybody want to shout out what you want to know? If not, I make the decision. Can I say finding time for yourself? Joseph, can you type in the word finding time for myself? Okay. So you find in a family, in a marriage, it's not all about you and your husband or you and your wife. It's the entire system. Okay, press enter. Okay, and let's see what it does. Okay. So what happens is this, that it kinds of this Orego AI, it kind of like is a learning companion for you. You have Sylvia, of course, with her wisdom, but many of us do not have therapy sessions weekly. It's too expensive. Many of us do not have good advice, but you can use this system, right? So that's what it's doing. Okay.
Or recommend a course.
Let's just recommend a course. Is there anything else? No, go up. Yeah, that's it. Okay. A gentle way to think about it. You do not need a huge block of free time to start caring for yourself. Okay, so for many parents in your situation, self-care works best in small, regular resets. So you can stay steady rather than waiting until you're completely drained. So what might help you? Protect one tiny day pause, one tiny daily pause. Use a tag team plan with your husband. Give your daughter her own short special time. Okay, have a special family rhythm so that you can give a predictable attention. And then of course the Orego AI can do more, give you a weekly self-care and family time schedule, right? Sylvia, in your expertise, you come across clients who ask you this. How would you advise them?
Actually, this question reminds me of one of my clients that I was helping her with. It's a very similar thing about, life is so busy, and then the husband is always busy, and then how to find time for self-care. The problem is actually not about time. The problem is about her own expectation of herself, actually. So she placed a lot of expectation of herself as what she thinks a good mother is. Okay. She thinks a mother has to be there for the child 24/7, attending to everything the child needs. Okay. That kind of stuff. Like do the homework, listen to them, be the emotional counselor, do the everything. So this is the expectation that she has put on herself. And then with that, the burden, the responsibility is so huge. And then of course, Then she has her kids, her job. So there was a stress that she really put herself on. This has high expectation of herself to fulfill every single thing. But the truth is, your kids don't need every part of you to be there 24/7. Okay? Kids don't need to make sure they have like super nutritious meal, it's not like they're going to die if they don't eat, things like that. So what we had to do is really do a big emotional audit for her because her guilt is about her, it actually came from her own childhood, where she felt that she herself was a bit emotionally neglected as a child, right? And then she wants to not do that for her children and compensate by I want to be there for my children 24/7. So this huge expectation, of course, is just unrealistic. So we had to address the emotional part. This thing about the guilt. Why are you expecting that high expectation of yourself as a mother? So once we address that a bit better, she could actually start to think about setting certain boundaries or changing some of the expectations of herself. Number one is actually start thinking of herself or for herself. Because one of the pattern is she was constantly thinking for other people first. Okay. So AI is good to tell you what you can do. Oh, just 10 minutes. But I tell you, mothers or fathers who are so sacrificial, always thinking about the others first, they struggle with setting even 1 minute for themselves because it's so guilty because they believe that I need to be there for my other people, but not for me. If I think for me, I'm selfish. Okay, so no. So you have to really start to think about feeding yourself. So this parent, yes, does think about self-care. She knows it's important, but it's the emotional part, the giving herself the permission. So that it's okay to give herself the time. And that then is when she can start to feel more confident to set boundaries, discussing, negotiating with her husband, say, look, I really need 10 minutes, I really need a half an hour. You have to do whatever you can, you have to take over, that kind of stuff. All right. So
Okay.
this is emotional part then.
Thank you so much, Dan. Okay, we have another question that came in through the WhatsApp chat. Inda, could you use that question? This question is by Jean Mapuli. Okay. Again, we want to, no, sorry. I use that question, cut from the comment. My husband is taking 5 months of psychiatric medicine due to severe
Oh, it's a
depression.
different question. It's a different question on the screen.
It's a different question because there's someone who asked this question on the chat, so I'm trying to answer them. Inda, can you look at the question? My husband is taking 5 months of psychiatric medicine
Yeah.
due to severe depression after his job loss at 49 and took a toll in him as a breadwinner. How to help him cope and my role as a wife? This is a question by Jean. Okay, let's see how Orego Air will answer, and then of course Sylvia, you can chip in as well. After that, we need your professional advice. Okay, not easy, not easy. As I said, family is a system, so it's not just you and your husband. It's you and husband and many different things, including the job, including your in-laws, right? So, okay, it says that sounds like a very heavy change for both of you. Losing a job after carrying the role of breadwinner can shake a person's sense of self and trustability. I can help with practical ways to support him and also think about your role without taking on everything yourself. What part feels hardest for you right now? Supporting day to day, or knowing what to do as his wife? Now, Jean, if you're around, you want to speak to the mic, or you can text it to the chat. We can put your answers over here, right, Jean? If not, then we would put on. We would just try supporting him day by day. Jean, are you there? Okay, don't worry. In view of the time, let's put supporting him day by day. Okay. Yeah. So okay. So again, this is a question whereby, oh, okay, Jean said thank you very much. We appreciate it. Appreciate that you said thank you very much because you know, it means that you value our help. It makes sense that day to day feels the hardest, especially when you're trying to be supportive through such a long loss. How does supporting day by day feel like right now? Okay. Okay. So you can carry on. You can communicate with Orego AI, but maybe I want to pass a question to Sylvia for you to give your views before we just move on here.
Yeah, I guess it's again very broad, right? It depends on what's happening. Because someone with depression, the behaviors can be also can cause the caregivers a lot of stress, because people with depression can be also very irritable or just down and just moody, So for the caregiver, it can be very helpless. Like, what can you do? You feel like you want to do something. I think sometimes again it's the expectation when you are pressurized to feel like you want to do something, it can sometimes may not seem right. Okay, so I think maybe it's just to ask them, somebody to ask them, what can I do to help you feel better? Is there anything that you need? Okay, because sometimes they may just need some time alone, or there's sometimes need some company, right? So you can drop little ways of showing care, like the way you normally do. Some kind of physical support, like going and taking them for walks or something, or going for walks with them. But I guess a lot of it is the not to pressurize them to get better, or look for a job, because I think, he has gone through a huge loss, right? This whole sense of identity of his role as a father, maybe that's been really crushed. So maybe just positive words, right? So words of appreciation. Hey, like it's okay, things will manage, and it's affirming his role still as a father, not just a provider, as a husband, right? Because sometimes husbands, all they think about is their role is just to provide, and that's the only thing that they can do. But they can do a lot of things. Their presence in a house, being in a home, that you can spend time with him, and maybe just saying that like, hey, it's so nice that you're here at home, and we can, take the time to spend more time together, and the kids get to see you more. So the other parts of relationship that maybe you can just add little things like this to help him to realize that, oh yeah, it's more than just about, he doesn't have to worry so much, or be too depressed about who he is. He's still a successful person. He's still, his presence is so much more important than him earning money, for example. Okay, so something like that.
Yeah, thanks so much. I mean, at the end of it, what you want is you want the spouse to feel
Valued still.
good and
Yeah,
valued, right?
yeah.
Okay. So this is what Orego AI is. So we don't have time to run through the other questions that you have, but what you want to do is that you can actually go in, log into www.orego.sg, and then scroll down and look for this black box with the shiny green light. And then just press any of this, whether you ask a question, whether you want to do a role play, or whether you want to test your own understanding on a quiz. So just click one of these buttons, and then uh, it will ask you to register with your email and then give you OTP, and then you're all set to learn. But take note that once you access, it's 7 days free of charge. Okay, but this is what um, accompanies you when you actually register for online courses, right? This is just 3 components. If in a real uh, Orego AI within a lesson, you can do summary, you can do other things like journaling, you can do uh, different type of case studies as well. Okay, I just want to have a feel of it, of how it can actually be a pseudo Sylvia, although Sylvia is not there, for our online courses. Okay, so Oracle AI plus online courses, right? Our courses can be on special needs, autism, your ADHD, dyslexia, and then therapy skills on personality disorder, like your, paranoid disorder, play therapy, which is very, very popular, DBT, dialectical behavior therapy. That's also very popular. Okay. All these are online courses, by the way. This is what I like, LGBT people. Not We're not supporting saying it's pro or cons, that we are not pro-gay or anti-gay. We are saying that these people, we need to understand a bit more in terms of their identity, the way they think, the mental health. Okay, depression, anxiety, and stress, family violence, caring for cancer patients is interesting. Okay, this is helping seniors face aging and death. Okay, this is a series for caring for people, learning skills on how to help people learn behavior, and then cognitive versus your behavioral, okay, and how to study better for your kids. Okay, this is a serious course, divorce and separation, and grief and loss is also serious course, and this is guiding you on how to helping you to guide your child on the use of gaming, social media, and AI. Now, if you notice our social media at this period of time for this last week and going for the next few weeks is all about this area, how to guide our children to have healthy use of social media, gaming, and AI. Okay, so we take themes for our social media, and then attachment issues, this one. Okay, how to build a trauma-informed support, how to help children be more resilient, right? So if you noticed, there's a lot of topics that we have. I'm not going to play the video, although the lady there is very pretty, one of our staff. I'm not going to play the video because of time, but I'm going to just say that if you go to our online courses, okay, you can watch, for example, Sylvia's course on divorce or grief and loss. The first 2 lessons for free. Okay. And then if you want to, you can actually continue to watch further courses. Maybe another one third of it for a small course, and we call starter plan, and then you can upgrade to premium plan. But all this pricing are based on location, depending on where you are, right? Now, again, today, if you use this code, which is here, webinar 30, you can get 30% discount from your starter fee. And if you buy your premium fee, you get also 30% of your premium fee. But take note, Singaporeans, you are going to use this with your credit until you see, don't use this discount because it will not be valid. You must fill up your application form first. Okay. All right. Upcoming classes, child-centered play therapy, play and creators therapy. And then this is by Bishop Solomon, helping seniors face aging and death. That is this one is full 2 half-day courses. But of course, what I also want to know is this, that of course you can register by sending QR code. We'll send it to you later in the chat box, or you can actually come to our website to register. So we have monthly webinar. So the next one is by Bishop Solomon. It's a man that really have gained a lot of popularity in Singapore. He's Bishop Emeritus, which means that he's a past bishop for the Methodist Church in Singapore. He's the longest serving bishop because he runs for 2 terms. He's also a medical doctor, right? So he's medically trained. He also writes a lot of books. So I've gotten him the next run in 17th of September to do a course. To do a webinar, free webinar called Aging Well, Faith, Meaning, and Deep Connections. All right. So this is a small part of his live workshop that he does. Of course, it's an online version as well. But the date is on 17th of September, 8 to 9:30. The timing is a bit different from today, 8:30 today. We start, but here is 8 o'clock, simply because for health reasons, he need to start early, he need to end at 9:30, right? So that's his request. So we kind of like we respect that. So register. It's free. Okay. Aging well, faith, meaning, and deep connections. So if you are having parents who are aging, you want to learn how to help them, please come. Okay. If you are yourself senior in age and you want to learn more, please come. Or if you are in some kind of service that you're helping others, please come. Right? This is free, so no matter what, you will learn how making meaning of your senior years is important. Meaning of what's happening is important. Your gray hair, what does it mean? Making meaning of the gray hair. Many of us dye our gray hair, so we don't look old. We're deceiving ourselves. We are still aging. All right? So making meaning, building connections with your children, with friends around you, and having some level of spirituality is important. Okay? Okay, so this is where we end, right? Time now is 9:47. We want to say that, okay, thank you for feedback. Okay. This is, we will send you this, whatever is whatever we presented here will be in our archive, whereby you can go and watch, no problem. Okay, you can go and watch the past webinars as well. Okay, but we have a bit of time, and we want you to just be free to ask questions to Sylvia as well. So any questions, anybody? Before we close, any questions for anybody? Okay. Jean, you remember Sylvia? Jean, that's not a question. Is that my husband is taking 5 months of psychiatric medicine due to severe depression after job loss. Jean has a question, following question, that she asked. Do I need to share my personal worries with your husband, I suppose? Okay, Jean. Sylvia, you want to just kind of answer this question? Hey, Sylvia, you are muted. Sylvia, you're muted.
Yeah, I think it really depends. I think maybe sometimes it depends on where your husband's at. If he is feeling quite emotionally worried about everybody else, so if you share your personal worries with him, then it might add on more stuff for him to be worried about. So this is where caregivers probably need to get support outside. So that's where to maybe get some counseling or share with your other friends, maybe a friend you can trust or family members who we get support from. So basically, what I'm hearing is that you yourself are feeling a bit burnout, right? So these are signs that maybe you are getting a bit burdened and a bit burnout, and you need some support yourself because you need to support yourself first to be okay. Then you can be a better caregiver. It's just like the same thing in the airplane, right? They always say that put on your oxygen mask first before you can give the oxygen mask to your children, and the same principle applies for when we're giving care to our family members. So self-care is very important. Taking care of your own mental health is as well, right? Because it's really not easy supporting someone with, severe depression because it can be very emotionally draining as well. So I get that. Yeah.
Good. Thank you so much, Sylvia. Any other questions coming in? We still have some time. Any questions? Okay. If there's no other questions coming in, maybe you should call it a night. I know some of you come in directly from your work, probably have a drink, and that's about it. Maybe it's time for you to have let's have our dinner, because for me, I've not had dinner yet, right? So let's go for our dinner. But we are so thankful for Sylvia to spend time with us to talk about, marriage and things surrounding marriage. Okay.
What I
So,
might do is, yeah, if maybe people don't want to ask questions in a group or anything, I can add a link to the group chat. If you want to book the 20 minutes consultation with me, you can ask questions. So it's in the link if you want to do that. Okay. You can, I had the QR code just now, but here's a link. You can click on it, and you can book your time in that is suitable for you if you want.
okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, you can stay back to ask. If not, then I'll see you again for the next webinar, which is on the 17th of September by Dr. Bishop Robert Solomon. You won't be disappointed. He's a very good trained speaker. Okay. Thank you all. Okay, good night.
Okay, good night.